The California median home price is expected to increase another 6.2% in 2024, according to the latest forecast by the California Association of Realtors. Now, this is coming at a time when buyers are canceling contracts in droves as both prices and interest rates soar. In addition, you have home buyer sentiment plunging, along with U.S. housing starts hitting a 3-year low. And if that wasn't enough, you have jobless claims coming in at the lowest levels we've seen in months, and the Federal Reserve just sitting on their hands, leaving the rates unchanged. So how can the California Association of Realtors expect an increase in home prices with all of this happening? Well, that's exactly what we're going to dive into in today's video. We're going to talk about what's recently happened in the California housing market, and we're going to talk about what they're forecasting in 2024. But before we do that, I'd like to take a minute and ask a favor. If you find any value in my videos at all, do me a favor and hit that thumbs up. Also, feel free to subscribe to the channel to stay updated on everything real estate related. The California median home price just hit the highest level in 15 months, coming in at just shy of $860,000, which is up 3.3% from July and 3% from August of 2022. And at the same time, we've seen statewide home sales year to date drop nearly 30%, sitting at a seasonally adjusted and annualized rate of 254,740 homes, which is down nearly 19% from August of last year. So we've got interest rates pushing to the highest level we've seen in nearly 23 years. We have home prices sitting at the highest levels in 15 months, while the number of transactions is down significantly year over year. So how is this even possible? Well, it's something that we talk about often. Now, before we get into that, I want to mention that real estate is local. So I'm here in Southern California. What's happening in California might not be happening in your market. So just make sure you're paying attention to your local data before assuming what I'm talking about here is happening in your market. But with that said, it always comes back to supply and demand. When you have a finite number of something and you have more people that want that product, it essentially drives up the price. And that's exactly what's happening in the California real estate market. You have California inventory sitting at some of the lowest levels that we've seen on record, while at the same time having enough demand in the market in order to make it competitive out there, which in turn is keeping prices stabilized and moving up. Now, when I make a statement like that, people often write in the comments, Jeb, who can actually afford these homes? Who is actually buying property? It must just be millionaires. And the reality is, it's not. In fact, one of the main drivers of the market at the moment are move-up buyers, people that are selling a home and buying another, which unfortunately doesn't really add any inventory to the market, because when you put one on the market and you take one off, there's no net gain to the market. And that's one reason that inventory is staying low, because what you need is homes to come to the market where people are selling, where it doesn't result in another home coming off the market. And that's really hard to do, because most people don't sell their homes and decide to become homeless or decide to go rent. Typically, that only happens when you have new construction being built, or when you have people relocating out of state. They're selling a home here and maybe buying one in another state, or in some cases you have a death or somebody's dying or there's a divorce. And in those cases, it does generate some new inventory. But at the same time, a lot of the people that would be potential sellers have had the opportunity to take advantage of super low interest rates over the last couple of years. And this in turn is causing a lot of these people to reconsider whether or not they should sell that property, or maybe even turn that property into a rental if they decide to buy something else. And this in and of itself has created problems for the housing market, because without additional supply coming to the market, you've more or less created a market that can really only go in one direction. Now, that doesn't mean that home prices can't go down, but they're not likely to go down in any meaningful way unless you see a bigger increase in the number of homes on the market. And as we film this video at the moment, we're about 2/3 of the way through September, which is typically when we start to see our inventory levels peak for the year, which means less and less sellers are going to put their homes on the market for the remainder of the year. Now, the good news with that is buyer demand is also muted, because interest rates are above 7% and staying above 7%, at least for the short term. You've got less buyers out there in the market, which is keeping inventory and demand more or less balanced. Now, let's consider it from the flip side. If you had a very, very low level of inventory moving into the holiday season and you had a ton of buyer demand, that means you're going to have a competitive market and home prices are likely to move up in a significant way. And then let's look at it from the flip side. Let's say you had a lot of inventory on the market right now and buyer demand was really muted. Well, in order for these people to sell, they would have to probably reduce their price in a meaningful way because you have less competition out there in the market, less people willing to buy those homes. But neither of those cases is what's actually happening in the market. What you really have is a very low supply of homes and a very low amount of buyer demand, which is more or less playing into that California Association of Realtors forecast that they're giving for 2024. Now, in that forecast, they're expecting the number of single-family home transactions to increase by nearly 3%, taking it up to 327,000 units sold in 2024, which is almost a fourth more transactions than we did in 2023. At the same time, they're expecting the median home price to increase, as I mentioned earlier, by 6.2%, taking it to $860,300 in 2024. Now, that's after they're expecting a 1.5% decrease in 2023 to a price of $810,000. Now, here's the crazy part. They're not expecting housing affordability to improve at all. They're expecting it to stay at 17%, which is essentially what we had in 2023. In fact, they say that 2024 will be a better year for the California housing market for both buyers and sellers, as interest rates are expected to decline next year. At the same time, they're expecting the housing supply in 2024 to remain below the norm, even though they're expecting active listings to increase anywhere between 10 and 20%. And the reason they believe this is because they believe that the lending conditions are going to improve, which is going to allow some of those would-be sellers to put their homes on the market while giving up their super low interest rate. At the same time, they're expecting the economy to soften in 2024, along with the Federal Reserve loosening its monetary policy. Now, this is something I've been talking about for the better part of a year. As inflation continues to come down and the economy slows, the Fed is going to take their foot off the gas pedal, and in turn, they're going to put it on the brakes, because in my opinion, they're likely going to go too far by keeping interest rates too restrictive for too long. And with that, they're likely going to have to ease monetary policy. At the time I'm filming this video, they're expecting 2 interest rate cuts in 2024, which should allow interest rates to come down. And with interest rates coming down, you're likely to see buyer demand pick up in the market, keeping home prices stabilized. Now, I don't necessarily agree that home prices are going to increase by 6.2% in 2024. In fact, I think that's a little bit crazy considering they're expecting home affordability to stay at 17%. But I guess their belief is that by interest rates coming down, it's going to allow more transactions to happen, which is something they're calling for, in addition leading to higher prices. Now, with that, they're believing that the average 30-year fixed rate could be in the mid 5% range by the end of 2024. Now, it's hard to say whether or not that's actually going to be accurate, but I do believe inflation is going to come down. The economy is going to continue to slow. In fact, student loan repayments are about to start once again, which is essentially going to pull $100 billion out of consumer pockets, which means they're not going to be spending it on things like food, on going to the movies, on traveling, on restaurants, on hospitality. Instead, it's going to be going towards student loans, which means less money out there being spent in the economy, which should allow inflation to come down in a more meaningful way. On top of that, you're likely to see unemployment continue to go up. Now, California has been a leader when it comes to unemployment when we go back and look at history. And at the moment, California is leading the way, sitting at 4.6% compared to the nationwide average at 3.8%. So if history is true, then there's a chance that unemployment is going to continue to rise, which means a smaller workforce, a less productive society, if you will, and slower overall growth. So what does that mean for you if you're a buyer or seller out there in the market? Well, if you're a seller, chances are you're still going to be in a pretty good position because there's not a lot of inventory out there in the market. There's just less properties to choose from. But at the same time, because interest rates are higher, there's less buyer demand out there, you're going to have less people looking at your home, which means you need to price it correctly from the start. In fact, your strategy might be to price it a little bit lower than what you think it's worth, just so you can get some eyeballs on that home. Now, with that, if you have a home that's under the median home price for California, chances are you're sitting in a really good position. In fact, I actually believe homes that are priced under, say, 1.2, 1.3 million are probably going to be in a really good position, just because there's not a lot of available inventory out there in the market. At the same time, if you're at the higher end of the price point, you're at that luxury price point, you typically have less buyers looking at your home to start. And in a slower market with high interest rates, that just means less eyeballs on your property. So that typically means more days on market. So just factor that in when you're looking to sell your home. And on the flip side, if you're a buyer, just understand the market isn't crashing. Sellers aren't giving away their homes. In fact, there's probably a lot of you out there looking to purchase a home. So if something comes to the market that you like, chances are someone else is going to like it too, which means it's still competitive out there in the market. Now, that doesn't mean you're going to have to go way, way, way above the asking price in order to get your offer accepted or do crazy things in order to make it happen, but you do need to be realistic when you're putting an offer in on a home. Now, with that, I'm currently a home buyer in the market myself, and I'm going to talk about that in another video. But you have to buy when it's the right time in your life. Buy for the right reasons. Not get caught up in the idea of whether or not you're overpaying for a home or whether or not interest rates are going to come back down and it's going to get more affordable. You just got to buy when it's the right time, you're comfortable with the payment, but more importantly, just make sure you have a longer term time horizon. You have time on your side just in case things do move down and you're not in a position where you have to make irrational decisions. Now, California is often changing. There's a lot of things moving around. Home prices are going up, going down, rates are going up, going down. Home sales are all over the place. So there's a lot of things that you need to think about. So if you're considering buying a home in California, make sure you check out this video here.